Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Where we continue to follow the capture and killing of Osama bin Laden now.
Those are just some of the scenes overnight as thousands of Americans gathered in celebration of Osama bin Laden's death.
Former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill says he has thought about the mission every day since that May Day in 2011.
For multiple conversations you had with Rob O'Neill over the past year and a half, how'd you get
access? And you described that his head kind of exploded when you hit him.
I actually hit him 3 times because I shot him twice when he was standing and once on the ground.
That is the fucking American badass right there.
Go, go, go. We are not going for fame and we are not going for bravado. We are going for the single mom who dropped her kids off at elementary school on a Tuesday morning, and then 45 minutes later she jumped to her death out of a skyscraper.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
I'm Rob O'Neill, and this is the Operator Podcast. All right, here we are again. This is episode 82 of the Operator Podcast. Today's going to be fun. Normally, what I do here is I give you my opinion on whatever, on current events. There's a lot of events that are current going on right now that I'm able to talk about, and normally I would give you my input on what I think and then check on social media what you think at the Operator Podcast on Instagram or at Mchooyah, M-C-H-O-O-Y-A-H on Instagram and or Twitter or wherever else you find at Mchooyah. And I normally take what you think and put it to work, I guess. Today, I'm going to be interviewing my friend and teammate, former Navy SEAL Bill Brown, who's got a unique story. He went to BUD/S a little bit after me, and then he came to the East Coast, same as I did. He was at SEAL Team 8, and obviously the way the SEAL teams are divided are even numbers on the East Coast, odd numbers on the West Coast. I was at 2, he was at 8. There's also 10 and 4 out there, and then obviously we have 1, 3, 5, 7 out west. But Bill Brown, combat vet, great dude, attorney. He runs the Navy SEAL Swim, which is in New York. We'll talk about that once a year, around August of every year. Pretty kick-ass 3.5-mile swim in the Hudson. So across that, swimming past and to the Statue of Liberty, you'll see a bunch of studs without shirts on in Catch Me, Fuck Me shorts running around Lower Manhattan carrying American flags. Very awesome. And it ends at the 9/11 Memorial Museum. That'll be this year. I'm going to go this year. I'll get Armed Forces Brewing Company up there, which will be great. Armed Forces Brewing Company, by the way, just had their grand opening at our first brewery in Norfolk, Virginia at 211 West 24th Street in Norfolk, Virginia. Norfolk, Virginia. A lot of different ways to say Norfolk, Virginia. My mom says Norfolk. Some people say Norfolk if they're from there, whatever. Anyway, the zip code's 23517. That's Armed Forces Brewing Company. Kick-ass place. I guess they had a good weekend. We got a nice apparel shop, too, so that's awesome. But I'm going to try to get them involved with the Navy SEAL Swim that Bill Brown runs. It's a bigger crew every year, I think. It started out with just SEALs and veterans, and now it's those and first responders, and then some dudes from Fox News swam, which is pretty cool. Will Kane did the swim. Pete Hegseth. It's always good to see some Army dudes get in the water. And I'm going to get Armed Forces Brewing Company up there this year in New York, so that should be fun. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then there's been some... because of what's going on with diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're seeing it leak into, in Bill's case, the legal aspect of the private sector, and he'll talk about that a little bit. We're at a position in some points because of these leftist policies that if you tell the truth, you're going to get canceled, and you see it all the time. Obviously, we see it on Instagram and Twitter. We've seen people that speak, it's generally the truth, but it's their version of the truth sometimes too. It shouldn't matter with free speech. You should be allowed to say anything. We all know that. But sometimes you get punished just for speaking the truth. At Mchooyah, gets restricted all the time. Still don't know what I did, but I'm trying to find out. But this will be a good talk today. So we'll enjoy talking to Bill Brown. First, I want to talk to you about today's sponsor. You've heard me mention Muddy River Tactical, these kick-ass conceal holsters. I've actually got two of them. I have a right-hand holster and a left-hand holster. You should be able to be proficient with both sides, just to get make sure the rounds can go both ways. So I've got two cool ones that say they're Kydex holsters that say the operator on them are pretty badass. I really like them. This is a family-owned company. Kevin Mason started a while back because he was frustrated with the customer service and the quality of products from different holster companies. So he just said whatever, and he started his own. So we were talking inside the waistband, outside, Kydex and leather, specialty holsters. I mentioned the saddlebag holsters and these cool EDC dump trays where you put everything from your gun in your holster, your knife and your change. Keep your gun next to your money. Dual air polymer reinforced gun belts. With these polymer reinforced gun belts too, they're reinforced, exactly what it says. So there's no more twisting, no more sagging. You're going to get what you want out of these belts. Sorry, the gun belts for your holsters. So no more of that crap, and they stay right there. They use computer numerical controlling for these machines. They play an important role in the manufacturing industry because the CNC are controlled by a computer. There's a proficiency level and accuracy and consistency you're not able to get in the traditional method. So the holsters are awesome. The customer service awesome at Muddy River Tactical. Made in the USA, family-owned, precision engineered using these machines, and a no BS lifetime warranty for Muddy River Tactical holsters. 15-day risk-free trial. If you don't love them, send them back. No questions asked. They're on Facebook and Instagram, Muddy River Tactical. And if you go to the website, muddyrivertactical.com, for anything, the cool belts, the holsters, the hats, the hoodies, use code THEOPERATOR for 15% off. So go to muddyrivertactical.com, 15% off with code THEOPERATOR. Go there, check out the cool stuff. Even get a gift certificate if you're looking to buy really cool, high-quality gifts. And speaking of the customer service, they monitor the emails 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. So remember, go to muddyrivertactical.com. Use code THEOPERATOR for a good discount. Check out their stuff, muddyrivertactical.com. Oh, okay. Welcome to the Operator Podcast. I'm your host, Robert J. O'Neill. I've got a special guest today. His name is Bill Brown. He is a former U.S. Navy SEAL. And if you're watching the audio, you can see a 231 on his hat. That means Bud's class 231. And we have a saying in the teams that my class was the last hard class. So 231 is the last hard class. Does that sound about right?
Absolutely.
I'm not pulling a card here, but I was 208. And the way we said it was, we graduated two of us and they made us fight it out. So that's kind of how that's Bud's. Welcome to the show, Bill. Bill's also a combat veteran, SEAL Team 8, I believe.
That's right. Yep.
And then an attorney, which we thought war sucked. Being an attorney, I don't even know who's writing those rules. How you doing today, Bill?
Hey, number one, Rob, I want to thank you for your service and what you've done for this country and the brothers with you that were that historic op. I know you've been on a lot of big time ops. 2,977 Americans were killed on 9/11, and you were part of the justice to put that bastard, to hold him accountable. And I can't thank you enough. And I know so many Americans are extremely grateful. One of the things, I'm the lead SEAL of the New York City SEAL Swim. I'm about trying to send a positive message, and I'm about, you think about how many guys in New York City that took a hit on 9/11, and you think about you had 343 FDNY firefighters, you had 71 NYPD police officers, you had 37 members of the Port Authority Police Department, PAPD. And every one of those units plays a substantial role in putting together and working with us for the New York City SEAL Swim. And just want to let you know that you always have an honored and welcome place at that event. And thank you. I shout out the Flair, and, thank you for giving me a platform, giving me a voice. When we look out for each other, we're always better. And I'm very grateful, man. Thank you.
I love that you say that too. That I'm kind of interjecting here, but when you say when we look out for each other, we're better. That's something too. I think that the veteran community needs to do a better job of, because it seems to me that we're pretty good at making fun of each other. But sometimes, I mean, just, inter-service rivalry, but sometimes it gets a little bit rude. And I think that if I remember I had my commanding officer when I checked into Red Team say, when we retired, if we all work together, we're going to be millionaires, but it'll never happen. And I don't understand, because the positivity. I went to the SEAL swim. I didn't get in the water. You're a bigger badass than I am, but positivity there's seeing the Statue of Liberty, all the dudes kick ass shape, carrying the flags, running through Midtown, and then getting up to the memorial. How did that start?
It's funny how things kind of, like, I think a lot of things in life, there's different variables that kind of play a part. And there's a couple variables. One is I served with a guy named David Goggins, who's kind of a renowned team guy.
Yeah.
And we were in Hell Week together, and we actually did our first snatch and grab together in Baghdad. And we're brothers forever, And so when he got out, when I got out, I used a GI Bill. I was going to college. And I saw him doing these ultrathon runs for a foundation at the time called the Wounded Warriors Foundation.
Yep.
And one of the things that really impressed me was here is a guy using it as athletic abilities or something more for just himself. He was giving back. He was giving back to the community, and that had an impression on me. And when I ended up going to Rutgers, I did a run with another veteran named Efren Gonzalez, Iraq veteran. We ran 65 miles from Rutgers, Camden to Rutgers, New Brunswick, and we started the first scholarship for veterans there called the Jeremy Kane Veteran for Education Scholarship. It was called Veteran for Education Scholarship, but I had a young guy in my group named Jeremy Kane who got killed in Afghanistan by a suicide bomber. So I changed the name to the Jeremy Kane Veteran for Education Scholarship. So that was in the back of my mind, and now I'm a lawyer. And every once in a while, I'd have to go to the lower federal courthouse in Manhattan. And my law firm's office was in Newark. And I would take the path to the Oculus and in lower Manhattan. And that's right where the World Trade Center is. And I'd have to walk right by there, And I go to the federal courthouse and I do attendance, they call it 341 creditors meetings. And I'd walk back, and that's in the back of my head. And then one day I'm driving to the courthouse in Jersey City, and I ride a turnpike there, and I see the Statue of Liberty off my peripheral on my way there. And then when I'm coming back on my left side, and I was thinking about it, I was like, you know what? The Statue of Liberty to the World Trade Center is not that far as the crow flies. And I was like, well, what's in between it? Fucking Hudson. I was like, fuck, SEALs can swim. That was it.
Yeah.
I reached out to a couple guys. It was real grassroots, man. I reached out to a couple guys, and they rogered up, and 33 team guys. The first year, Pete Hegseth from Fox News got on board big time, and before you know it, it turned into a major event. And last year, sponsoring the Navy SEAL Foundation and Uncommon Grit Foundation, two really good groups that help out a lot of veterans. And so I was really proud that, and we had 6 Gold Stars jump at the get-go, trying to have them have adventures with us too. And so, it's actually one of the, it's a great way for us to come together. I call it adventure therapy. And it's a great way to us to come together, kind of have a monster mash, but at the same time, kind of send a positive message of patriotism for a whole nation to see.
Oh, I mean, that's as American as it gets. Just watching the guys run through the streets with the flags, that just looks really cool. It's American, man. Those are the dudes that when the shit hits the fan, those are the dudes that show up. Because when I went this year, and it was veterans, SEALs, first responders. You even had Will Kane, and I think did Pete do it again? He did, didn't he?
He did. He's a glutton for punishment.
Well, he's an Army officer, so I don't expect much in the water from Pete. But he swam more than I did, so I don't know why I'm talking shit. And then Will Kane from Fox, I know him, and I saw him afterward. I'm like, man, that's incredible. You did a great job, a lot of prep. And he goes, no, I played college water polo. I'm like, well, that's good. Okay, so no stranger to it. Yeah, it was how far now? What's the total length your swim? Is that about 3.5 miles?
Yeah, it's about right. Hey, my hat's off to Pete and Will and entire Fox News and Newsmax. Carl Higbee always gives us some love too.
Yeah,
those guys put that into the stratosphere. hats off to those guys.
Yeah, yeah. Higbee doesn't like the water. But I bet if you add a bench press competition or a backflip thing to it, Higbee will hop in there. He told me, he said, I posted something a while back. I went for a swim in Florida, and I said something about, or someone said, why doesn't Higbee get in the water too? And he said, because the water is wet. So that's fair.
Now
But
that
again-
explains why. That explains why. Because like every year, I think he's going to come, and then something happens. But those things. But I love him. He's always giving us.
He's
love.
great. Well,
You know,
the NYPD was nice to me. Let me use their boat, and I got to smoke a cigar watching you guys do some work. So I'll put in a word to Higbee. Maybe we can get him out this year. When is it going down this year?
So the event, everything, NSF is like pounding on my door to give them a date. I always try to get as close as I can to anniversary of Extortion 17, like the weekend closest to August 6th.
Yeah.
But the tides and the currents determine everything. And I try to maximize coverage on Fox, and preferably having on Fox and Friends in the morning. It makes it easier for our support assets too, because we're not clogging up the Hudson later in the afternoon.
True.
But I can't give a solid date right now because I just don't have enough intel on the tides and currents. They say, hey, this is the solid date. But it's going to be one of the first weekends in August. It's Saturday. We have this Sunday as a contingency. The second I get it, I'll have Navy SEAL Foundation put it up on their website.
Cool. I should get Armed Forces Brewing Company up there too for the finish line.
I would love to have those guys. Those guys, I'm also the president of the Veterans Alumni of Rutgers University. And we just had a big event on the battleship New Jersey. And this is the second year we have an Army Navy Watts party on the battleship. And every year those guys, they donate beer. So man, my hat's off to you guys, and thank you for the free beer.
Yeah. We just opened up our first brewery in Norfolk, Virginia. Last weekend was the grand opening. I guess it went over pretty well. That's great too. We can get into more of that too, because there was some woke politics that went into where we opened up there. But getting Armed Forces Brewing Company up there would be great. Like I said, for the finish line, but I also know a few guys that'll probably knock back 5 or 6 before they swim.
Well, that's one of the things I'm always worried about. Like last year, NSF wanted to have some type of event before, and I said no. I said if there's any beer there, team guys are going to drink, and I don't
know.
want
Yep,
guys.
I was just going to say that. I know us, and I don't fucking trust us. No. And if you need me to get my wife in here to double down with me, she will tell me no sternly. But no, that's a great event. I definitely want to be more involved. I was so impressed with the event. And like I was saying earlier, it's so nice to see veterans get together with each other and get along, and just the way forward. If you can figure it out, man, there's so many great, like you mentioned, Uncommon Grit, McTeams is down there with and he usually brings Baz, one of the best photographers in the world. And there's when you find a Navy SEAL with purple hair, you're probably going to have a good I'm just saying. So
I'd love, what he does so much good for so many people, but he was going to be on he was going to be on Newsmax, and I basically had to beg him to put on a hat because he was representing the whole community. He had like purple and pink hair, and I was like, please, in the name of God, please put on a hat.
What's awesome about I was with McBee for years. I mean, we went through Buds together, and then we went to 2 together, and then we did a brief stint at 4. When you were around then when we just switched buildings. Like we kept the guys together, but just switched buildings. Like 2 became 4 and 4 became whatever. But I was with McBee, so I'm throwing shit everywhere, and he was never not completely clean shaven and good haircut. Navy chief, by the book, gets out of the Navy, boom, purple hair. It's like, all right, dude, get some purple hair and a cowboy hat.
You know what? That guy served his country with honor.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Love him. If he wants to let loose, let him let loose. I look at it. Hey, he's an artist. He's going to do what an artist does.
Yeah, he's a damn good artist. He actually designed my first tattoo. I was over there. Me and a couple guys from SDV Team 2, Danny Dietz was over there, and he designed it. And we walked right out and rode to Spain and got some ink and some drink, and it was, then it, how tattoos go, it just turns into more. But
yep.
So all right, now before the big stuff, why the Navy? You joined in Pennsylvania, right?
I joined in New Jersey.
New Jersey,
couple
okay.
things. Originally, I was a rough and tumble kid. I think, like a lot of us, kind of, for me, to be sincere, the Navy saved my life. I was in and out of detention center. I was playing musical houses and things like that. I do come from a pretty, like a lot of us too, a lot of our fathers and grandfathers served. That was the case for me. So I kind of had that in the background. For me, I tried to join the Marine Corps at first, and they actually said no, and because some of the trouble I got in, and so I'm out there struggling. I'm working a couple like bullshit jobs.
What had you done in the past that the Marine Corps said no?
Stuff I got in was a lot of fights. Really, that's pretty much it. You know, God only knows. I was at Burlington City High School, and some guy kind of came knocking on my window with a couple other guys. And so I came outside, and we wound up getting in a fight, and I wound up putting his head through the window. And so that kind of might have scared some people off. I don't know, but.
I mean, I've worked with Marines, and they're kind of into that shit. So I don't.
I was in Fallon, Nevada. I was going to a JTAC course, right? The FTX, literally the day before my FTX. They got the enlisted club there.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
We come back from the enlisted club. There's a couple of us, and you got a bunch of Marine guys up on the third deck, and they throw like this beer can like a torpedo, pop, and it like explodes right at us. So we roll right up there, and we get in this huge fight. I'm doing pretty good, and something hits me I didn't see, and all of a sudden my front two teeth are gone, bloody mess. I'm jacked up, and a couple of guys got right in front of me, kind of like a contact drill, kind of throwing shit down as we did a tactical retreat. But I got nothing but love for Marines. I served. I did some stuff in the job there in 2004. I ran a QRF for Marines there. But yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know how it is. Somehow somebody over there gave me the thumbs down. So I was out there in the storm. I was riding my 10 speed because I was pumping. In New Jersey, they have people.
Well, they do it for you.
Gas junkies. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm a gas junkie. I'm pumping gas. And I'm freezing. I kept getting robbed because it's in between Philly and Trenton. And so they hadn't worked in the night shift. So it's early in the morning. I'm riding back, and it's like freezing out, man. And the wind, I thought I was going to get like frostbite on my manhood parts. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, there's got to be a better situation than this. And I saw the recruiting station to my right. And so the next day I was there, and there was a Navy recruiter that he did me a solid. You know, I was up front with him like I was with the Marines, but basically I took an ASVAB, and I did pretty good on the ASVAB. And what happened was, I think because I did pretty good on the ASVAB, they had me go down to Philly, talk to somebody at some officer at MEPS, and he gave me the thumbs up. And my pappy was a World War II veteran named Gerald Bridges. And so I think that's one of the reasons why, instead of going to the Army after the Marine Corps, I decided, well, you know, my pappy was a World War II veteran. Let me see. And that's one thing led to another.
Yeah, the old school Navy stuff. That's when the Cracker Jacks were tough. You see the sailors, they could whip some ass. I just love how it's the between the frozen nuts and getting robbed. Let's just join the Navy.
Pain compliance, Rob.
Did you have a rate, or did they give you a job, or did they tell you it was full, or did you say I want SEALs, or what?
No, to be sincere, I knew nothing about the teams back then. It wasn't like it is now. So what happened was, I just wanted to learn a trade. Like, I was in survival mode. I just wanted to learn a trade. Yeah. I had to get out of New Jersey. And so I'm in boot camp, and I got a couple drill instructors, and they're like riding me. And there's plenty of guys who are soup sandwiches in there. I don't know, some way, somehow, there's some guys who can be the gray man. That's not me, right?
Yeah.
So they're riding me, and I'm like, fuck. But what happened was to kind of purge and decompress. Like after whatever they had us doing, it was me and a couple other guys, and we would work out in the bathroom.
Yeah.
We're doing pull-ups, off the stalls and push-ups, and we had our own little groove. So, and we're in pretty good shape. And a couple guys come in, and they towards the and in Chow, in the first couple of weeks, you were in the Smurf outfits, and you can't talk, and you have these TVs on there, and you had guys doing the O course. You had some guys, and I didn't know what they were now. It reminded me of Miami Vice, these Mark V's, really fast boats. And you had some EOD guys, fire in the hole. And I was like, wow, that looked kind of cool. But I still didn't know much about it. And so I winded up taking they come in there, they come to our division, and they say, hey, you can test. And it's like early in the morning, the process time is a little bit. And I thought, you know what, this is just a good workout for me to kind of get away from these guys. And so I wind up going there with a couple other guys from my boot camp division, and we all failed. And I failed because I was a shitty swimmer. And so but no one said you couldn't come back. And so my thing was I had some shitbag riding me. And so I was like, fuck it, I gotta work out. And I need some, and in that type of environment, when you get a couple minutes by yourself, it's like gold. So even marching there and marching back or whatever, it's like, I'm away from that shit. And it was good for me. And I would get a serious workout in. And even though I kept failing to swim, but I kept coming back.
Yes.
And it's so funny. I did the Tampa Bay Frogman swim just a couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
And I ran into Chief Zent. And so he was one of the dive motivators. So he was like, hey, I want to take the test. And it was like the third time or something.
I think they limit it to something like 3 tries, though, don't they?
Well, if they do that, they won't get guys like me. So Chief Zent says, hey, you're not taking the test. And I was like, my heart was kind of crushed. And I was like, fuck, that kind of sucks. And instead, he had me in the water. I don't know if they heat that pool or not, but for whatever reason, I don't know. But instead of, because my side stroke sucks. So instead of doing a side stroke, he taught me like this modified breaststroke with like some type of dolphin kick.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, somehow that clicked and I was able to barely pass, and one thing led to another.
I failed the first time also. I blamed it on all the vaccinations that we got, but it turns out I'm just a shitty swimmer too. So it was I found that to be a good workout too, because you're not doing shit but eating rice and gravy, and then you got to try to get. And we could do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I'd march over there every Tuesday and Thursday, and I was amazed at how many people actually did fail it. I think that's part of the learning curve, that failure is not fatal. You can give it another shot, just don't quit and you'll be all right. That was me anyway. I tried to join the Marine Corps too. I couldn't swim, and then that SEAL thing sounds fun. So but then so Bud's 231, which was would that have been 98, 99?
No, 99, 2000. Yeah. So what happened with Buds is actually I didn't make it through the first time. I started out with class 218.
Okay.
218, I get rolled the first time for rock portage. I was the bow line man, and it was during El Nino, and those waves were pretty big.
Oh shit, you're gonna get destroyed.
Yeah, well, we had a couple guys jumping out before they hit the rocks. They were a little smarter than us.
Oh,
so we get smashed up, and I get out the bow. I got the bow line. The rocks are really slippery, so I'm trying to crawl my way up there, but it's algae, and I hear the guys water. And so the water hits me in the back, and I put my elbow over my face, and I get slingshotted in the rocks, and it's actually this elbow. I can feel it now.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the instructors checked me out because they knew I took a big hit. You know how it is. I was trying to avoid medical at all costs.
Well, yeah.
And so what happened was the next day during early morning PT at the grinder, we're doing pull-ups. It swelled up like a boob.
Mm-hmm.
And so I couldn't hide it. So then they rolled me back for that. And that was and so then I go in 219, made it through Hell Week, and then I get rolled for pool comp.
Oh, fuck.
But what really happened was, and so then I get to third phase, and then they winded up dropping me 2 weeks before graduation out the island for weapons practical. So what happened was after Hell Week and first phase finals, I performed well in Hell Week. Was I highlighted myself because they thought I was too dumb to be a team guy. And what happened was on you know this, but the guys, your audience might not, is the first phase finals really isn't that difficult. It's basically a chronological order of a hydro reconnaissance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the UDT Frogman, that's one of the old school stuff, how they used to contour the gradient slope of the beach.
Yeah.
And so what happened?
Did the first injury from rock portage, was that during Hell Week, the first night?
No, not during, no. It was
not even up to Hell Week. So Hell Week is sorry, rock portage is an old school frogman. Just because you brought up old school frogman, that's how you get from like the boats that you row up and literally up and over the big scary rocks. It's right in front of the Hotel Del, because as a student you're having your life flash before your eyes, but if you're staying at the Del, you're on one of the nicest beaches in the world watching these kids get tortured. And so can you explain what the Ballon guy does, dude? So people don't know how he got hurt.
So the bow line on the front of the boat, you basically have this rope that's attached to the boat. And so what the bow line guy will do is, once you guys basically hit the rocks, the bow line's going to have the rope, going to put it around his waist, and he's going to situate himself in between the rocks. So he's like an anchor. And he's going to use his hips and basically his weight. So when the water hits, and as it's coming back, the boat stays anchored up. It's not washing back, so you don't lose ground. Mm-hmm. And so then in between sets, basically, that's how you work your way up the rocks.
Yep. And you do not want to get in between the boat and the rocks per se, because you can get completely hammered. And that's just, yeah. And that is though, because you brought up that and then brought up the hydrographic reconnaissance. And I'm a big believer too. At the time I was like, well, why would we need this when we have this technology or whatever? But now we're getting into the world of electromagnetic pulses. Like, can you use a map and compass? Do you know how to row a boat? Because it might come to that. The next war might be sticks and rocks.
You know, sometimes I evaluate some of the stuff we did, because even back then that was super old school stuff. But I do think it's a good learning environment for teamwork.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Yeah. I think you need to know that. That was the point I was making too. Is that's the old school stuff you really need to know, because the next war could be flicking a light switch off and all of a sudden nothing works. It's like, all right, who do me and my family eat first?
So I don't know if you had Instructor Gecker or not.
Yes.
But I love Instructor Gecker. I love all these instructors.
I think those guys were instructors. Ward, Decker, Tabor, I think they were instructors for 45 years, because they're legends. Like, everyone had them.
So Instructor Gecker, he was kind of known as the Hammer for good reason. I got nothing but respect for him.
Yes.
But
so Mike Gecker and the Decker and Tabor. I'm trying to think of all these. It's like they're awesome team guys, but I can still see them in dark shadows and they scare me.
So this is this situation. I knew where I was flawed up, because I grew up rough and tumble. I had really misplaced perspectives on education, and the way I grew up. It's a miracle I got in the Navy. But so one of the things that happened was Becca comes into the class after we took this test, and he's like, I'm going to try to reenact him a little bit. He goes up to our OIC. He's like, could you believe? He's like, we got a new record at Buds. He's like, we got a fucking new record. And he's like, can you believe? He's like, somebody in your class got a fucking 16%. That's 16% out of 100.
Yes.
And I'm in the center aisle in the first phase classroom. I'm like this. I'm like, dear God, in the name of Jesus, please not be me. Please not be me. But I knew.
Yeah, it's me.
So he's like Darth Vader walking down the middle of the hallway, And he's like, he stops right above me and he's like, and he kind of yokes me up. And he's like, if I got a fucking 16, I'd go home and kill myself. So then I'm like in the corner with a trash can over my head. But it was a big lesson. It was a hard lesson I had to learn, right? Because that was a serious wake up call to me about it's not cool to be like a rock. And
no, and that's
so
something you'll learn too, because like you're saying with first phase, you can get away with it because it's all physical. Then you start getting into stuff. I mean, not even at the end of first phase, you're getting into stuff too. And there's some of the there's tests obviously the entire time, but I think if you're not taking it seriously, like some dive medicine, dive physics can really get you because there's some complicated shit going on in there. That's my experience anyway.
Mine too. With dive physics, I had smoke coming out of my ears. When I passed dive physics, I thought nothing could fucking stop me, man. Nothing could stop. But I think buds. There's different guys, different things that different guys like.
Oh yeah,
like have their own battles. And so
I can still use a little remedial training on how to calculate time fuse. It's been about 13 years for me, so I might need to go over the shit. I thought, yeah, can we just kick a door and hit someone with a hammer?
Yeah, but yeah. So what happened was I got spot checked, and so now all of a sudden, like, and the other thing I did wrong, I did a couple things wrong. So I think one of the other, I was kind of like hoo-yah, like dumb in a way. Like I respected the instructor so much that I was just like hoo-yah, and I wasn't kind of like, I wasn't kind of letting them know like I'm a little bit of a thinker upstairs, and I wasn't playing it right. I did some other things kind of, I was a little more savvy about when I came back. Like I was working on the boats all the time, like in first phase. So like afterwards, I'm patching up the boats and things like that. And that's eating up my sleep. And I'm really not getting any like, any reward back for that work. It's just, those guys who just busting their ass and no one kind of knows about it. Well, when I came through the next time, like I was like working on instructors' trucks, like making, bribing them with like cappuccinos and shit like that.
Bribe the shit out of them. Yes. Just don't, I mean, you got to be clever. If you get busted, you're out. So you got to be clever.
That's it. You definitely have to have your stuff together. Hold on here.
Hey, this is good shit. Maybe we got some action going on. What do you got?
What happened? All right, here we go.
It's all good, man. It's all good. The bribing was fun. And well, even like, I don't know if I was just lazy, but even like right before one day, like the last weekend, and then you have one day, day one, week one, and you start buds. I mean, you've already done 5 weeks of buds, but day one, it starts with a room inspection, which looking back on it is the funniest thing I've ever seen. But I didn't like my roommates, the 3 dudes. There's 4 dudes to a room. 3 dudes stayed back all weekend, and they'd strip and then wax and buff. And I'm like, guys, I'm going to go see the movie The Rock just came out. I'm going to Horton Plaza. I'm watching a movie. We're going to fucking fail in the first 3 seconds. Why are you rest? Do something else. No. And then, they pulled they came first thing, we had dust on our ceiling because he chucked sand up. So you're going to fail that shit. I interrupted and I went off on a tangent. Sorry about that.
No, you're so right. It's basically a commando raid, and good luck.
Yes, and you know what I think would help, and it might have. I went through boot camp with a guy by the name of Sean Tufts, who went to Buds with me, but he was a sergeant, drill sergeant in the Army before. He fell off the slide for life and broke his neck, but he became the first non-SEAL or boat guy on the jump team as a parachute rigger, which is cool. But he was a drill sergeant, and he told me in boot camp, because I checked up at boot camp, just scared to death. And what he said to me is like, just calm down and realize these dudes that are yelling at you are just dudes doing a job. They're guys. They're not machines. They're, these are guys that, they get up 30 minutes before you do. So they're tired too. Just play the game. And the thing with instructors, I mean, Bud's instructors, way different animal, but just the realization, like if I would have known, I wouldn't be good going through if I went back at 19 now, because I tell them all to F off. But if I just realized these are just team guys who are a touch hungover and they're pissed off that they have to run with us. Maybe.
That's it.
But Bud's instructors, man, I remember going. So, and actually Sean, I got to get him on here. He was the first guy I ever saw get yelled at by a SEAL chief, Bud's instructor. And I wanted to leave right then. That I didn't want any part of that conversation. That's just different. Sometimes when the team guys get on you, it can be scary.
Oh yeah. It's like a wolf pack when
God,
like
they smell the
shark
blood.
frenzy.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. One of those oh shit moments.
Yeah. Oh my God. Those first, I bet every team guy can remember their very first room inspection when all 15 instructors come in and just hammer the shit out of you. And we didn't pass until we bribed them. Like we finally left power bars and Gatorades and shit and porn. If you can distract them, because what's the rule? Instructors are lazy and they're stupid. That's not a rule. I just made that up. I'm pretty much just talking about myself.
You got to play. You got to. You know, it's funny too. It took me a while to figure it out. You got to play the game.
Just play the game. And I don't think even if the students knew how structured it actually is, the complete fucking chaos is actually very structured. And but yeah, I don't think about it, Tom. I thought instructors were trying to kill me.
I thought the same thing, and maybe they were.
So you went in 218. Did you go to the fleet?
No, so actually, it was 218. I get rolled for pool comp, and one of the things that happened on pool comp is actually the first time I actually kind of did a little like lawyering, I guess. I advocated for myself, and because I had a buddy.
Can you briefly explain the rules to pool comp, what it is?
Sure, guys. So what pool comp is? It's basically an evolution where they're trying to test your ability to solve problems underwater and under pressure.
Yep.
And what they do is you have 2080 scuba tanks, and you got these double hose. You have your regulator, and what they do is they have these two bricks, and you basically crawl from one brick to the next. And what they do is the instructors will come and they call it a surf hit. And what they'll do is they'll come over there, and the first thing they'll do is they'll rip off your mask, they'll rip off your regulator, and now you're on a pretty big breath hold, and they're on top of you. And what they're doing is they're putting your hoses from your regulator in a knot. And so one of the things you do is once they leave, is the first thing you do is you want to try to get your air back. So you reach back and you see if you can turn on your air, and that's going to help pressure your hoses to make it easier for you to take out the knot. Now, once you are able to take out that knot, when you get that first thing of air, it's a really good moment, because you've been on a long, lengthy breath hold for a while. That one of the things that gets some guys is you can't put on your dive mask back. So some guys have a hard time getting air in without breathing it through their nose. The next thing that happens is basically you want to grab your weight belt and anchor yourself so you can work now, because now your tank's in front of you. So you grab your weight belt and you put it around the back of your legs so you don't float. Now you got an environment where you can work under the water. And the next thing you do is you put your tank back on, and you start putting your straps back on. You make sure there's no twist. You make sure you have 3-inch quick release straps.
Yep.
And
everything in order, because they're watching.
That's it. And I think the big thing there is to kind of be composed, and it's almost like what you were talking about earlier, Rob, about knowing how to play the game.
Yeah.
And I think go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because all we really knew is the system, the order, and eventually there's going to be a knot I'm not supposed to be able to untie, but I don't know when that's coming. Well, I remember my first experience, failed my first one, my first two actually, was, hey, swim back and forth. That's all they said. And next thing you know, you got no mask, no fins. Someone's beating your ass, turning your air off. And just do that for an hour.
Yeah, and that I think that's one of the things too. So they give you a knot that you're not supposed to get out. They call it the whammy knot.
The whammy, yeah.
And if you, and once you've been under there for a while, you're in kind of the back of your head. You're like, hey, I've been here for a little bit. The whammy
This has
knot's
got to be
coming
it.
up.
Got to be it.
But you got to be careful that you don't, if you're too quick on not trying to get out that knot, then
You fail.
some guys take a hit on that too.
Just fail. There's not even a point system. You're out. You failed. Yeah, you can't quite get that knot. And the thing too that I've seen dudes do. Well, we were just talking about dive physics, an arterial gas embolism. If you breathe compressed air at depth, not even necessarily depth, a couple feet, and you hold it and come up, you can get an embolism because Boyle's law, it'll expand with less pressure. And I've seen guys get, as soon as you get the whammy knot and the instructor gives you a thumbs up, you need to put your lips on the bottom of the pool and start exhaling with a hand up, a free ascent or whatever they call it. Then when you come up, so you got to do that. And then as soon as you get out, you got to say the term, I feel fine. The reason you say feel fine is because if you have an embolism, it'll come out with like an M sounding, like I mule mine. And guess what? You just got a chamber ride. You're going back down for a long time and you failed. Fucking idiot.
You know, it's so many different, it's knowing when to turn it on and when not to in some, because you think about the 50-meter underwater swim. We had a couple guys in my class that actually passed out trying to do it.
Yep.
And they were kind of respected for it. But it's an inverse type of relationship with pool comp because of the fact that you're breathing compressed air and AGEs and all that type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. The 50-meter underwater swim, I remember thinking, but like nobody ever told me about pool comp. I didn't even know about it. Like with the 50-meter swim, hold your breath. Like my plan was because you can kick off the other end. So jump in, do your flip, swim 25, kick off. And then my thing was get as low as I can. And if I pass out, the instructor will grab my hair and bang my head off the thing so I pass. And I've seen fucking people do that. But with the compressed air, man, you're playing with, well, not necessarily fire, but you're playing with some pretty nasty water.
You know what's so funny? My strategy for the 50 underwater meter swim was identical because I was like less temptation to pop up if I'm low.
Don't even come up.
Yeah.
Because even if you hold your breath to passing out, they're going to pass you. It's like, whatever, that's good. Because we're not, I don't care how far you can swim. My job is to see how far you'll push yourself, and you just killed yourself. So good job, you passed. But like to me, that was so, and like, those are the parts of BUD/S. Like Hell Week, you can get rolled if you pass it, but then you're there. And pool comp's another one we didn't know about. And then nobody told me how miserable San Clemente Island was going to be. I thought that was supposed to be fun.
Yeah, that's a kick in the dick. I mean, you really start learning like you start like L-shaped ambush, rage, some bounding maneuvers and things like that. You're shooting every day, all day. You're starting learning about different weapons and things like that.
I was even impressed with the mission planning was realistic because they were really good about putting the sleep deprivation sort of in it. Like you're going to be tired, and it's important. I mean, because it's basic underwater demolition SEAL training. The basic part is there's a lot that goes into your mission before the mission. You got to do a lot of shit, and something with the planning and just the whiteboards and the patrolling and the signals, and then the goddamn choya that goes through your combat boots.
Yeah, you're so right. You learn about dirt diving.
Yep.
You know, I definitely kick in the dick, but you know, I've actually had some pretty cool experiences. That one of the beauties for being a team guy is seeing the world, being outdoors, and I think one of the couple of cool experiences I had there was two that are distinct. One is that we did that long run. I don't know if it's 15 miles an hour.
I think it was 14.
But you start really early in the morning. Well, we're running in the morning, and you got all those cliffs right along the San Clemente there. And there was this huge meteorite shower. And so here, you know, you're really good. Yeah, it was beautiful, man. Because you're out there, so the ambient lights. It was beautiful. And it's something I'll never forget because it wasn't like it was like, I don't know, you know, in my mind, it was like for 5 minutes, but it was probably like 45 seconds, but it was pretty cool. And then I had another pretty cool experience. We're doing that long contour swim along the island. And, you have those big kelp forests and the water's really clear.
Really clear out there. Yeah.
And so I'm swimming and I'm kind of like weaving in and out of these kelp forests. I'm having fun, because in my memory, I don't even recall having a swim buddy for this one. I probably did, but I'm swimming and there's a seal and he's checking me out and he's weaving in and out, kind of just checking me out. And I was like, man, this is fucking cool.
They're very agile.
Yeah, yeah, but they're scary too, because if there's seals out there.
Yeah, that's I think the reason, and I don't, again, knocking on wood, I think the reason no one's gotten clipped out there is because in between San Clemente and San Catalina is a breeding ground for great whites, not necessarily a feeding ground, but that doesn't mean you haven't seen a sea lion bit in half washing up on that beach too. There's a pucker factor out there for sure.
Yep. There's and that swim, that night swim where you're following the kayaks with the glow sticks.
Yes,
that's definitely that's definitely a gut check, because
it is. That's a safety and numbers thing. On the strand, it seemed like guys are racing. Not us, of course, but out there, it's like strength in numbers. One big school of bud students trying to make it to the buoy.
That's it.
It's almost like we did that drill that was the beehive, where you get pushed down and just go to the end and come back in. Like that's one big amoeba of scared to death bud students who won't admit it. They always said to me, what would happen if you got attacked by a shark? And I said, well, I'm not lucky enough for him to just kill me. What he would do is wait for me to finish the 2-mile swim, drag me out 2 miles and make me do it again. That's what the shark would do to me.
Yeah.
But that turned out to be awesome. I didn't care for the 10 pull-ups with your gear on before you eat all meals. I'm hitting the surf before lunch. This is bullshit. I should be in shape by now.
I know. I tell you, I had a couple of meals outside the galley too, man.
Yeah, just soaking wet.
Yep, shivering. But you mentioned Sean Brennan earlier, right? If you talk to him, he'll tell you my biggest fear is sharks.
Brennan, man, he's that I just so he was in 206 and I just checked in for 208 and he almost beat me up in the first bathroom. He's the first dude I met. He's got a brown shirt, I got a white shirt, and I just think everyone is better than me. So he basically called me out and threatened to beat me up, and I still remember that, Sean. I ended up doing a platoon with him too. I love that dude. But the good news is with Brennan, he's got very heavy hands, so I'm really glad I didn't step up to him. You can throw a punch, man.
Yep.
So 231 and then off to the East Coast. Now that was during the STT times, right?
That's right. I was SQT. That's right. So I guess it was probably a little different than you, because we were kind of one of the first. So my last class there, I was up for fire in the gut, and in 231 I was up for honor man. But
cool.
Thanks. The SQT. So I guess it was a little different for you guys. Was you went to your teams and then you went to your board, you got your bird.
Yeah.
For us,
the way that it worked for us was you go out to your team, then they did an in-house, on coast, they call it SEAL Tactical Training, STT, which is about 13 weeks. And it was fairly organized, but then you go back to your team, have your probationary period, then your platoon chief decides when you deserve a trident and you go to your board. And then we didn't like change because the same bullshit with my class was last hard class. But now SQT, they put everyone together and then you get a trident, then you go to the team, which we didn't like, but it makes a lot more sense than the way we did it, I think.
It's kind of funny. I think there's always a certain level of resistance to change. I think the way they're looking at it, normally the guys, they probably got a good feel for it if they're going to change it. The way I went through, it was probably a good step. Give guys a little bit more kind of tactic training, understanding, so they can kind of filter into the platoons better.
It makes perfect sense because if you have the time and the assets and the skill level of the instructors, there's no reason not to teach them standard operating procedures before you get them, because you might as well know something. I know I learned a lot more skydiving when I was being taught by Arizona Arsenal, who are the best skydivers in the world, than when some team guy would come out and laugh at me for having a downwind landing. Like, at least teach me how to do this shit, guys. So it seems to make more sense. But I dug that. So what was Team 8 like when you checked in there? What year was that?
Team 8, 2000, right after 2000, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was a new guy when 9/11 went down.
Mm-hmm. What were you guys doing on 9/11?
So what was I doing? Interesting. So I was a new guy. I was going through courses. I just went through a comms course because I was going to be a comm guy in my platoon. So I went through a comms course, and then at our team, they had us going through this. They had all the new comm guys, not all of them, because some of the guys were out someplace else, but a kind of internal type of course where we actually, as I recall, learning like Morse code and basically how to do like blueprints of buildings. I know it seems kind of odd, but that's how my memory recalls it. And what happened was back then guys had beepers.
Yes.
And so we're going through the course, and all of a sudden we had like 2 instructors there, and it was all internal teammate training, and their beepers go off. And so one of them leaves, and one of them comes back, and he tells us all to go to our platoon huts. So go to my platoon hut. I have, there's a guy named Jimmy Graham. He was an older guy. He was in my platoon.
I went through buzz with Jimmy Graham.
Some other guy, I forget his name. And anyway, so they're like, we're watching it. And I'm from Jersey, so I've been, grew up in and out of New York City my entire life. At first, everybody thinks it's like an accident.
Yeah.
And then the second one hits, and we're like, holy shit. And so, yeah, that's where I was.
Yeah. And that's when the whole thing changed. That I was, yeah, because pre 9/11 is way different. I was going to join for a couple years and then, go back to Montana. And then I met the dudes out on the East Coast, and I was young, and I was like, well, I'll re-enlist. This is cool. And then 9/11, I'm like, well, I guess we didn't get dressed up for nothing. So then, so your first deployment at 8 would have probably been like a UCOM or an Africa MARG type thing. What'd you guys do?
So our first platoon was a UCOM. First, we were we were on decommissioned. Well, a couple of different things happened there. We were at Stuttgart, Germany for a little bit. We wound up where you were at, right by Rota, Morón, Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And we were basically, then they had us on the USS LaSalle. She's decommissioned.
Yes.
A couple cool things happened there. One was she was kind of like a command center for a battle group.
We were on the LaSalle at about the same time, because I was on that too.
Oh, wow.
Right around the same time, because we were, I think I was on the LaSalle, would have been, maybe not, about 03 then, maybe 02.
Got in a huge fight in a bar fight in, and I think either Sigonella or Naples, Spain. We beat some dudes up on that shit pretty bad, but we didn't start it. Basically, we gave them a bunch of shots, and then it was their time to give us shots, and they got like alcohol courage. It didn't work out for them, and it turned into some big ordeal. But a couple cool things happened there for me. One was I was a JTAC. And
yes.
So they flew me out on a bombing range to Albania.
Oh, wow.
And there, Steve Messer, I think he was the senior chief, but he was the guy kind of running it. And what we did is we were out there on tents for a couple of weeks on this bombing range in Albania. And I kind of picture it as like a warm-up pitcher.
Yes.
Warming up the pitcher. And basically, so they had all these different air assets there to get ready to go into Iraq at shock and all, and basically doing all these dry runs. I kind of keeping them busy, I guess. And so then what happened is they flew me back on get the aircraft carrier. I forget what aircraft carrier. And then somehow I found my way back to LaSalle with the rest of my platoon. And then one of the cool things that happened there was I'm in the command center. And so I was a team guy, right? And so I could go up to the flight, to the deck, and no one really say anything. And they were launching, and you could see these ships right next to us, right? They weren't too far, and they would launch their Tomahawks. And when they would launch, the ship would kind of go back. And so now our ship would kind of be running point. And I don't know exactly how a Tomahawk works. I know it's a GPS guided, but the first part you could see it before the other part kind of departs, so you could see it and trace it for a little bit, and it was kind of cool. And then what would happen is I would go down to the command center, and I could see the TVs and stuff and where they were shellacking Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, when I was in Baghdad, and I saw parts of Baghdad and Jaffa and things like that, I could see like what the effects were. And so that was kind of cool. That was
That's very cool.
A little historic. Yeah.
Not everybody gets to see an invasion. We got turned around. I was up. So that was 2003 because we got turned around, had to go into Liberia. There was an uprising. We were going to go on the invasion with the Marines into Iraq and had to turn around and swim into West Africa. So there's that.
Jeez.
So, okay. So what's the when did you get into Iraq? What year?
So I got into Iraq in 2004. So I was there 2004 to 2005.
And you're in the green zone near Baghdad?
Well, I was the AO that I winded up working out of was basically Baghdad and south. Like I was in Al Naziriyah, Najaf, Basra. But my primary thing that I did initially was basically I was a PSD detail for Burnham Salah, who at the time was the DPM, Deputy Prime Minister of Iraq. And there's a couple times I winded up being a driver. There's a majority of the time I was either the comm guy in the convoys, or I did some. I don't know if you ever met Stephen Redbow.
Yeah,
but he was my senior chief, and I did some. I guess you would call it RNSs, and some of it was kind of sketch, where it's just basically me, him, and a couple other guys, and like some Iraqi like beat up shit car. We're not in fucking uniform, and we're basically driving to different places that the DPM is going to meet. Because one of the things they were doing at the time was they're trying to run the country, he's trying to bring the country together. And a lot of things that he would do is he'd meet different dignitaries for different, like he met Al-Sistani in Najaf, different people who had a lot of influence over there. And some of it, he would go to some like reconstruction sites or some type of, thing going on. And one of the things we would do is we would basically RNS it, we'd have our GPS out there, kind of plan the routes that we would take, and try. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I did.
Now he's the PSD is a support detail on a precious cargo, if you will. Was it now this guy, the deputy prime minister, is leaving the green zone? No, he's going around. Like, you're not just inside the green zone, right?
That's right. He's going around. And the other thing I did too is, so I think a lot of, at least for me, the attention to detail and things like that, and the way I think we were programmed is different. Because when you're at the time, he was like, a lot of guys might, and a lot of your audience might not realize, but at the time in 2004, 2005, team guys, SEALs guarded the top 5 dignitaries in Iraq and in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And our mentality, at least mentalities, were very assertive.
Yes.
And it's a different type of mentality when you're on the X, and you got to be proactive and realize and try to reduce threats where you're not basically hunting. And but one of the things they did to us too was, I think, so I had I wasn't I wasn't a sniper. I grew up in New Jersey. I never shot until I got the buds. But I was a breacher. I was a comm guy. I was a JTAC. So I had some quals that made me beneficial, and I found myself on sniper ops and on snatch and grabs with my platoon, with other platoons, and actually with Army units and stuff in the Najaf with the Marines. So those are some of the ops that I did when I was in Baghdad, because one of the things they would do is they would kind of basically, it was almost like recess, because you're getting off from doing PSD stuff and you're actually doing stuff that you thought, you were going to be doing.
I always thought that even though, I mean, at first that time, 04, everyone's trying to get in the fight, but we had dudes protecting Karzai and all that stuff. I always felt like the security details wasn't a team guy's job. I know we trained on it, and we, got some good training, but that's more of a State Department thing. I don't think team guys need to be doing that. It's just because, like you said, you're always on the X, because you're walking around with a target and you're supposed to potentially sacrifice your life for this piece of shit. So it's like, it never, I mean, whatever. And it's like, there's a difference between protecting American dignitaries and protecting corrupt criminals. And I think that's what a lot of guys were doing. It can be very dangerous. I know a couple of guys that got shot in the plates protecting people, but they were okay. But anyway, but you said breacher. Which did you go to do they have a West Coast breacher school or no, you went to probably Pickett.
Yeah. East Coast. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I went to that one too. I thought that was awesome. That's a team guy course right there.
Yeah. I believe Good. I don't know. I think it's Good and Newman. I know were to like the primary instructors.
Yeah.
But yep.
Hughes was teaching when I went through it. It was just awesome. And I like that course because it's like, well, here's a wall. Let's just go through that. What'd you bring? Like literally chainsaws, quickie saws, explosives, the thermal bear torch. Did you guys ever do the drill, the big drill?
No big drill.
Yeah, that's not as cool as it sounds. I'm not even going to talk about it. It's just a pain in the ass.
We did quickies. We did like 7-foot no nail charges. We did the door poppers with the C4.
Yeah.
Good
course.
Chainsaw.
Really good course.
Yeah,
So-
the torch. One of the things I learned in that course that helped me later on in life was through that course, because I've always been kind of like an unorthodox thinker, And one of the things that happened in that course is a really good learning tool is they videotape you as you're doing your FTXs.
Yeah.
And a couple of things happen so the first thing is you put away all the gear. After you put away all the gear, they kind of put on the red lamp that kind of, and we would debrief.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the cool things about what happened was they'd have they had this technology where basically they had approximate and they could draw on it, and the first thing is they would have you debrief how you thought things went. Then the next thing would happen was like if you tried to bullshit, if you kind of messed up a little bit or whatever, or if you did something a little different, because there's different things you can do with explosives, depending on the material, depending on what you want to do. And so I know, like for me, there was a couple times, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I saw like you learn, like when you talk about pool comp earlier, like one of the things I learned about pool comp and even first phase, like knot tying and stuff like that, was observational learning. And so like I'd always try to be at the back, and then I kind of see, all right, what instructor's failing a lot of guys, let me try to get away from that dude, or try to get intel from guys like, what the situation was, what they did right, what they did wrong. Well, it's an observational learning here about debriefing. You gotta be able to articulate what your actions were and what your reasons were. And you see a couple guys who did something, for whatever reason, wasn't what the protocol. If they had a reason for why they did it, they didn't get fucking hammered. But the guys who were like kind of like didn't have a reason, they got hammered. And so that was a big lesson for me. And the other thing too was I learned that like if you're in a room with a bunch of smart guys, you can't bullshit them because you're just making yourself out look like an idiot.
Yep.
Like,
and that's the thing. That's the thing too, talking yourself into an ass whooping. That whenever I learned that I might've been Breacher School or Green Team, but whenever they said, why'd you do that? My answer is always, because I'm an idiot. Just fucking get out of that argument. Because I'm stupid and I didn't listen to you. You're good looking. I'm not that handsome.
Yeah.
But you know what I learned? You know what I learned in Breacher School too? Because I love the outside the box thinking. It's literally get in there. And I learned it from a buddy of mine who was a damage controlman in the fleet before he became a team guy. So, you know, a fire guy. Because when you're using chainsaw to quickie saw, the inside of the doors can light on fire. And then you got to put it out. I learned that baking soda works really well. Just out. Didn't know that.
Smart.
Just good. Yeah. DC1 pulled that out and just put it out. I'm like, thank you, petty officer. So that's good.
You know what? You brought something else to my attention too about problem solving. It's like, all right, like you're smashing the door with a sledge and like it's not working. All right, I got to move to the next tool. All right, is it a New York drop bar? Like, what's going on here? Like, where is it bending? All right, what charge am I going to use?
And where?
Like, and one of the things too is like never giving up. Like, all right, attack the problem.
Keep attacking the problem, and again with the process. I'm going to start with a kick while you're getting your hammer and your hoolie out. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to be I'm going to have the hammer guy hit up here, hit down here. I'm looking for where it flexes. I might need to put a bomb on there, shit like that. It's, it helped though. It really, war is great training, but this training was great training for war, if that makes any kind of sense at all. I thought Breacher School might've been a course that I think pretty much every team guy should go through.
I learned a lot.
And you know what did you have the Hughes made that? I still have the binder. I had to keep it when it was the difference between it. Cause the big schools were like comms, breacher, sniper, free fall. The front of the folder said Breacher School because a one-eyed fat guy can make the shot at 1,000 yards. You got to be up close and personal.
There was another cool saying too. No problem is too big for explosives.
I'm actually writing that down right now. Well, okay, that's a good segue. Okay, so done with the training, done with the war. Let's talk about what we were talking about today. Speaking of problems, what the hell's going on now?
Yeah. So one of the things that, happened to me is I think it's a small part of a much larger problem. And I think if you can look at, so I got fired for making a post on LinkedIn and from McCarter and English. And they had issues and they chastised me for a couple of my posts. And in my opinion, it's really based on my political perspective as a outspoken conservative SEAL isn't kind of what they were about. Yeah. And I could, vice versa on the other side of that, they had plenty of legal assessments regarding all the Trump indictments. And in my opinion, a lot of the vast majority of them, those posts were anti-Trump.
Yes.
And we can dive into that a little bit more, but I think there's a purge going on with conservative thinkers and people who are outspoken. Yeah. And so if one, you can say Hollywood, I think that's kind of, and then you could say academia. I think what a lot of people don't, and I think with academia, we had like a big kind of watershed moment when you had the presidents of UPenn, Harvard, and MIT. Basically, they could even say it was against student policy that the promotion of genocide of Jews was basically wrong.
They couldn't even say it.
And I think it kind of reminds me of like with Martin Luther King. Because when I think Martin Luther King won, I don't think it was his march on Washington. what I think his watershed moment was, I think he was a chess player. He knew that in going into Montgomery, Alabama, how those police would overreact.
Yeah.
But where he really won is he used new technology at the time, the TV, and that got those images got in everybody's houses, and they realized, look, something's wrong. And I think most Americans can look at what those presidents of MIT, UPenn, and Harvard, like these are some of the most prestigious universities in our nation, and how backwards they are, how wrong they are. And what I don't think most Americans realize, in my opinion, just how woke a lot of our law schools are. And that bleeds into our big law firms. And that unfortunately bleeds into our judicial system. And I think if you look at a lot of these, in my opinion, a lot of these, the most likely presidential nominee right now is Donald Trump. And he's facing 91 felony charges and 4 criminal cases. And if you look at all the whole Russian Gate and all that stuff, they're trying to basically subvert the will of the people to decide who we want to be president. And that to me, that's alarming. And so what happened to me, I think, is a small part of that. If you look at the COVID mandates, right? Because I believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I believe in the values that are expressed in the Declaration and the Constitution: free speech, right of free assembly, due process, equality. I'm a thorough believer in those transcribed values. And I also believe that our country is taking great measures to uphold those values. The Civil War, we lost hundreds of thousands of Americans. We had great leaders in the civil rights movement. We had great leaders in the women's suffrage movement. And we even had great leaders in the gay and lesbian. But I think what's happened now is that we've actually taken a back step. And I take it when you basically, I can't tell you how many of my friends and how many guys who did the SEAL swim, served their country with honor, got shut down on social media because they expressed concerns about the COVID mandates. And the truth is, they're not alone. Reasonable people can have difference of opinion regarding COVID, around the COVID mandates, and they should be able to express themselves in the open market of ideas, which is actually social media. I think if you look at, and the other thing is that look at look, I don't have an issue what consenting adults do. No issue at all. I do have an issue over sexualizing our kids. I do have an issue with having biological males in my daughter's bathroom. And I don't think I'm a bigot for saying, hey, reasonable people should be concerned, or I don't think, the head of the FBI should basically kind of infer that parents who have concerns are basically domestic terrorists.
I know. Yeah. That's great. So you were obviously a lawyer and you were working for a major law firm and you got fired for a LinkedIn post. That's basically what happened.
Well, yeah. So they had issues with a couple of my posts, and I'll try to kind of briefly talk about a few of them. So the first one they have an issue with, but the one they fired me for, is they stated that I promoted negative perspectives of Muslims and Black Americans, and that's not true. So the post, I first go on to state in the post that I was a first responder to 2 suicide bombings in Iraq, and those experiences had an impact on my perspective. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why, Rob, is because an IED, a suicide bomber hit right in front of us at this American cafe in a green zone. We're in armored Suburbans, some of the debris rushes up against our vehicle. We get out. Luckily we have a corpsman with us. We set up a perimeter. Our corpsman's doing a triage, and this crazy Iraqi that speaks and it was a bad scene, bro. And this crazy Iraqi that speaks a little English comes out. He's like, another one, a Jordanian this way, yellow shirt, black bag, this way. And this way is towards the trauma center in Baghdad in the green zone. And so my LPO at the time, he was the leading guy. We used to call him Hoots. Now he goes by Mikel Vega. I'm like, hey, man, I want to go get this guy. He's like, all right. And me and this guy, Doug, he was from another platoon. I forget his last name now. But so what happened is we weren't, I look back at it now, and maybe if I would have just hauled ass, maybe I would have got him, the second guy. But what happened was everybody's running around like, because it's like they're going, it's, you know, it's like people are panicking.
Chaos.
And they were getting mortared. They were getting mortared, and they would bust in these Iraqi nationals to do some of the reconstruction. And at their bus stop, they had these big Texas reinforced concrete barriers, and it looked like a little cave. And they're packed in there like sardines, and they got people running around. So me and my buddy aren't just fucking hauling ass. We're moving, but we're leapfrogging. So I get cover, I get some spot, and then he'd leapfrog, he get cover, and that's the way we're moving up. Because if we run into something, we're a little more protected. So we get past the hospital, which is a good thing. For whatever reason, I didn't hear the second blast, but I was very conscious to his muzzle. So he's like this with his muzzle, and I look, and there's a mushroom cloud right where the bazaar was, and they fucking hit it. And so one of the things, for me, is for whatever reason, sometimes when I think things are like in the teams, we would call it raising the bullshit flag, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes, like when something's kind of like a little messed up, I kind of feel it's kind of to speak up about. And so, one of the things that I made some mistakes when I was younger, and the Navy saved my life, and I was in the detention center, and I was one of the only white guys there, And one of the things, a lot of these guys there, they had similar type of misplaced values as I did, and a lot of it was because of some of this '90s rap music.
Right.
And so one of the things that I do on my posts is I basically state, I say, hey, there's a lot of beautiful Muslims. But I said, the truth is the language in the Quran is not tolerant. I said, there's a lot of beautiful Muslims and tolerant Muslims, but the language in the Quran's not. The textual language in the Quran's not tolerant. And there's plenty of verses in the Quran that I could put out there, if they call it the verse of the sword, like the Quran chapter 9 v5. If you read that, that's pretty much exactly what happened in October 7th in Israel. And so my viewpoint was, look, I also met, I had the privilege to meet Justice Antonin Scalia, and he was a big conservative justice. I met him at the Union Club in Philly. And he had this train of thought and constitutional type of interpretation of reading comprehension of the Constitution. And it was that you read the language as its clear and unambiguous way to read it, like what the words mean objectively clear. And that's kind of my basis for my stance regarding the Quran. The language in the Quran's not tolerant. And then I go on to say that some of the music, their hardcore gangster rap music in the '90s, promoted net values of drugs and violence, which is true.
Yes.
And you could look at a number of NWA songs, DMX songs, Mobb Deep songs, and these type of negative stereotypes, it's like a trap. And my kind of comparison was, look, there's absolutely millions of very influential young Muslims throughout the world that get caught into this trap, this antisocial trap that destroys so many lives. And it's on a much smaller basis, but it's also true that there were a lot of influential Black youth that got caught up in that trap too, regarding gangster rap and the ideals that it promoted. and it's just a trap. And that's what my post was about, and it was actually one of unity.
Yeah,
because
I
was
read that
saying
one.
And so I was saying, because what it does is it basically, we live the internet and the ease of travel. We live in a transverse, global society. And we, our educational institutions need to promote unity and self-collective, like societal improvement. And what happened was instead of seeing it as I wrote it, which was clear, that it was basically it was like, look, here's an issue. Here's an issue as educated and reasoned society, that these are ways that we need to address it. We need to realize what promotes poor values and perspectives that are going to do harm to all of us. And by doing that, we can excel the potential of growth for all of us. But what happened was they used that as basically their interpretation was that it kind of kills me in a way to kind of promote, like, oh, that I'm a racist. That's far from the truth. The truth is, I'm a concerned American. I'm a guy who went to war for our country. I've seen jihadists. You can, you look, one of the things, what happened on 9/11, what happened on October 7th. These are kind of repeated patterns that play out. And what is the root causes for that? And that's what I was trying to address. And instead, I got the hammer. But I kind of look at it like this, to be sincere with you, Rob. I remember I heard Malcolm X giving his speech. And basically, he was stating that he's not ashamed of the fact that he went to prison. He's like, I'm not ashamed that I went to prison. He's like, because at the time, like the way society was, he's like, if you're an educated Black man and you're speaking up about injustice, then you're probably going to go to prison. So I think now that I look into unfortunately the current environment that we're at, if you're a concerned American and you're concerned about our freedoms and civil liberties and our rights and equality and due process, but due process of the court, right? And you're speaking up about these things, chances are you're going to get canceled. And so I'm not ashamed of it. I stand by everything I ever posted. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, and I'm grateful, I'm trying to just kind of send a flare out there, and I say, hey, look, if you don't have the right to free speech, then what right do you really have? And if you don't have the right to due process, like if there's political fact prosecutors and they're going to go out of their way to try to tear you down and threaten your life and your liberty and even your pursuit of happiness because you have a difference of political perspective than you and you're outspoken, well, we're in trouble. And I think we are in trouble. I think there's certain jurisdictions in our country right now that you likely might not get a fair trial. Case in point, Daniel Pearl. Yeah, it's scary, man.
Well, I mean, instantly, Maine and Colorado come to mind. Trying to keep your opponent off the ballot is the cornerstone of Marxism, and the whole admit nothing, deny everything, make counter accusations. You're a fascist when they're actually using fascist tactics to silence. The freedom of speech is probably the most important one we have. Obviously, Second Amendment too, which is going to follow behind it. But it didn't strike me that you said anything controversial other than telling the truth. And nowadays, the truth can get you fired. That would get you canceled if you simply tell the truth. You were saying that. I pulled this up. This is a Quran 533. It states, the penalty for those who wage war against Allah and his messenger and strive upon earth to cause corruption is none but they can be killed or crucified, or their hands and feet be cut from opposite sides and exiled from the land. That's from their book right there. And I just read it verbatim, and that could be taken as violence. And I've dealt with suicide bombers too. And a lot of these jihadis had made it so common that I remember and it was Hamas that first was starting with the suicide bombings way back in like 2000, 1999, something like that. They made it so common that suicide bomber, you don't even bat an eye at it. And you got to understand, this person is taking their life because they know that once they blow themselves up, they go right to paradise. There is something violent about that. And I think, the only way around that is to tell the truth, but also guys like my friend Enes Kanter Freedom, moderate Muslims speaking out against other Muslims, asking for peace, wanting peace. And that's what they need. But the way that it seems to me that it's been spunny, just telling the truth, we're the only country right now that I think teaches our kids to hate themselves. The only country that says we hate our country, and then we divide and conquer, and everyone's a different version of themselves. And it's all either oppressor or oppressed, and I'm a victim and you're this. It's like, that comes down to the basic fundamentals of community. If you're going to teach, people aren't born hating, they're taught to hate, and you're teaching hate by division. And then, like with the thing we taught, Armed Forces Brewing Company in Norfolk, they protested, tried to get us shut down, not even open, because I said, everyone is welcome except pedophiles. I will not work with pedophiles. And that was controversial. I thought that's something we could all stand behind. Not in today's world.
It's horrible when you think about they're trying to affect individuals, people, good Americans, serve the country, believe in the values of this country, and speaking up, and they're trying to destroy your livelihood, your ability to do business. And I think the way I believe a couple things. I study our country historically, and I go, well, how was the civil rights movement successful? Well, you had some great leaders, right? Well, a couple things. Well, you think of MLK, he always held the moral high ground, and he was articulate. But you also had Malcolm X, who said any means necessary. And I think they complemented each other. Then I look at the women's suffrage movement, and I was like, well, how are they successful? And they were really successful, holding moral high ground, speaking up, stating their case. Then I think of the gay and lesbian movement. They were too originally. But now one of the things I think is that I try to do is I try to do it like a lawyer. I try to say, okay, I'm going to hold the moral high ground, just like what you're giving me the opportunity to do is giving me a voice. I want to share my concerns. I want to show the evidence, right? And so together we gave a couple of examples. Look, my firm, in my opinion, they wanted me to DOR, right? Drop out on request. Mm-hmm. And so for 6 years and 10 months, they paid me substantially lower. And at a certain point, like I was in the commercial litigation bankruptcy practice group, all of a sudden they stopped giving me work in the fields I normally practice. And the majority of my cases were representing alleged child molesters. That was putting my nose in shit, man. I want to tell you, that's some of the hardest shit I ever had to deal with. Now, what happens, right, is the way I kind of looked myself in the mirror is I said, I believe in due process. I said, this irks and I can't even tell you, I'm a dad to a little girl. Reading that, the discovery on that stuff was very hard, man. Now I got a buddy of mine, case in point. I got a buddy of mine, Shannon Rose. He's another SEAL. He came to my swim the first year. He actually helped me out because he did a swim called the LKL SEAL swim in North Carolina, swimming across Lake Norman. It was a great event. I participated in it. And when I called him up originally when I had the idea to kind of get some of the framework for how he moved forward. Well, he wanted to exercise his right to free speech, his right of free assembly. He goes to the January 6th march. His son's with him. He gets contacted. He doesn't go in the Capitol. He gets contacted by the FBI later. He's scared. He reaches out to me. He's scared. I say, Shannon, I say, man, I love you, but I can't. This is my area of the law. But I said, you know what? There's a lot of federal prosecutors, a few federal prosecutors at my firm. They do criminal defense work. I said, my firm's kind of left in my opinion, but they should be able to at least give you a good recommendation, right? Well, let me tell you, man, that's not what happened. The email responses I got back, one guy, Alexander Major, another guy, Robert Mintz, who makes repeatedly posts on the Washington Post and and many blogs. and all his assessments, in my opinion, are against the Trump indictments or anti-Trump. And another guy, Jeff Roseman, and basically they said, it's beneath them to even recommend an attorney. They didn't want anything to do with it. The pomposity of that. Here's the same guys, the same law firm that had me representing child molesters. Here's a guy who's a SEAL, did his First Amendment right, his first right to assembly, served his country, and now these guys won't even recommend it at this defense attorney. So much for due process.
That's not even due process right there. That's again just shutting them down.
That's it. And to me, like that's what I'm really scared of. I'm scared of the politicization of the American jurisprudence, because you can't have like justice is supposed to be blind. Well, if you look at all the current indictments against Trump, you look at what they did to Giuliani, like $150 million verdict, judgment, like the financially bankrupt. This is a guy who responded after a man who responded. Yeah, after a great trial. What they're doing to him is a sin.
Yeah,
like and so what I'm trying to do with your help, and thank you so much for looking out for me and giving me a voice. Is what I'm trying to do is I'm saying, hey, I'm raising the team guy bullshit flag. Well, something's wrong in our legal system. Something's wrong in our law firms.
There are people that simply on January 6th simply landed in Washington, D.C. and didn't even go to the Capitol. And now they've got air marshals following them around as domestic terrorists. Something's gone very, very wrong. And I mean, we need people to speak up like this too. I mean, I've been shadow banned from all kinds of social media and all kinds of bullshit. And, everything from not being allowed to fly on an airline anymore for a stupid tweet and all that shit. And it's a direct result of a lot of this woke nonsense. And it's almost like justice isn't blind anymore. Justice looks at you and what you look like, and then justice is deaf. Because if you're telling the truth, that's when you get in trouble. And people hate the truth. You tell the truth and they start screaming at you and calling you every ism there is out there, every name in the book, because you're a hater, when you're simply a fact. A fact is not that hard. It's a law. They're the ones, trust the science, but you tell them that's the boys' bathroom and that's the girls' bathroom, and they lose their shit. Now, is it like this all? Because I know it's getting bad in New York, and I know it's bad at some firms, but I travel a lot and talk to people, and a lot of people are getting sick of it. A lot of my gay friends are really sick of the fanatics taking over their movement. I just wonder if with the control of the media, can we get our voice heard, and how?
Well, I think one is, kind of take it to lessons to Breacher School. All right. Technology, one is they're trying to shut us. At first they did it to Trump, then he did it to so many more of us, right? Mm-hmm. But okay, so this tool isn't working. We're going to use another tool. This tool isn't working. We're going to use another tool. I think it's too important for good Americans not to stand up right now, for concerned Americans not to stand up, because the things that made it's so funny. I was working out before I got here because I wanted to look big for the show.
And well done.
Thanks,
mission success.
And there was this Mexican guy in the gym, and we were talking a little bit. And it's so funny because so many Americans, some of the most patriotic Americans are immigrants, right? And one of the things he was saying, these people who hate America, they don't realize how beautiful she is. They don't realize what the land of opportunity she is. And so I think what we're doing is right. I think we're out here talking about things that are wrong. We're out here saying injustices, right? And we're not going to stop. And I don't believe persuasion is like I'm not going to be shutting down any bridges. I'm not going to be trying to intimidate any judges.
Of course,
like that's not how the way I think is. We're the grown-ups in the room. We're out here trying to convince everybody by basically showing our evidence. Like, look, hey man, I'm a Navy SEAL. I serve my country. I love this country. I believe in the values of the Constitution. I got shut down, in my opinion, by a woke law firm. You know, they supported Black Lives Matter and they're not so peaceful protests. And here I am. You know, I reached out. I sent an email out to the DNI committee because they are sending all these other emails about many diverse things, and trying to say, hey, how come you forgot to send an email out on 9/11 to honor and remember all the.
Yeah. Well, and what was their answer to that?
all-
They ever? That's basic. That's in New York, basically, and they didn't even say anything to
So-
hey.
So their answer was this. The first response I got was from somebody from the DNI committee, and it was like, well, that's kind of not our responsibility. Then the second response I got was, well, you know, such and such. They were able to show they set one the year before, but not that year. And then I got chastised, and it was funny that I got chastised. And it was like by a judge. She was a partner now. Her name's Natalie Wilson. She's now a judge, and she was a big LGBT advocate. She was a proud lesbian legal scholar. She was from all the feedback I got, she was a good attorney as well. But she basically chastised me for speaking up. And my response is, no, I'm not wrong for speaking up. You guys had an office in Manhattan. They previously had an office in one of the Twin Towers before. Like, how could you not send an email on 9/11? And to me, that's just like, it's a small, you know, it's a continued, yeah.
And it's a yearly email. It's not like it's that big of a deal. And again, I mean, it's mind-boggling, but we know damn well these are smart people too. I think part of the issue is when the communists wanted to take over the media back in the 40s and 50s, they did, and now you can't get a word in because someone else owns it. And then they take over the school to the point where, again, with teaching victimhood, but we were talking offline earlier about the difference between equality and equity. Like, people say equity because it sounds like equality, when that's saying you get the same result based on how you look, as opposed to you have the right to show up. And when they say the thing, I mean, I don't know, I'm either a thinker or a non-thinker, but it's like when they say you're anti-immigrant, it's like, look, the immigrants that built the country came here and they built it. They didn't come here to an already established world and just reap the benefits. Like, you should probably give something back to this great country. And we just, for some reason, the people that wanted to take over because of personal power started teaching, along with the help of China and their algorithm with TikTok, which is good. I've heard that TikTok's kind of going away for whatever people. It's not cool anymore. They're going somewhere else. More to follow. But just how they can infiltrate someone using our freedoms against us to teach our kids that they hate this country, they're a part of it. Again, the up is down, down is up. Don't tell the truth, you get canceled. I mean, where is this going? What do we do now?
Well, you know, one is, I think the first step is what we're doing. We're out there, concerned Americans who love our country, speaking up, raising a bullshit flag. Two is we definitely have to vote. I encourage, we need more veterans in the legal field. There's like, there's no judges on the Supreme Court that are veterans. There's very few judges on any appellate court that are veterans. Like, I can't think of any judge really in the state of New Jersey that I know that's a veteran.
Probably not.
So we're not represented in the legal field. So I beg I'm not begging, but I'm asking all team guys, all spec op vets guys, you're looking to get out and redefine yourself. You're looking for a new just fight. Well, our nation needs you in the legal community. When I think about CRT, right, there's a decision called Brown v. Board of Education. And it's a Supreme Court decision, and it overruled this Dred Scott decision where they said basically separate but equal. In Brown v. Board, they said no, separate but equal is not possible. And the reasoning for it is they stated that by having separate but equal, it created psychological damage on Black youth, basically of inferiority. And you know what? I agree with that decision. But I think with the promotion of CRT, the critical race theory,
Mm-hmm.
is I think it has similar type of psychological harm done to white students, because here you have, they're teaching basically that the white people are inherently oppressive. And I think that does harm to our children. And I think that the divide, it promotes, I think it promotes hatred towards white people, and it promotes some type of like psychological harm to white children. So I'm not a fan of CRT. Look, I think slavery was 100% wrong. I think our country's taking great measures to abide and to meet the obligations in our Constitution and Declaration of Independence. But I think what's happened now is we're taking a back step.
Definitely.
Where and so I think, look, and there's going to be casualties. Like, this is a real fight. This is a long fight, and I think, unfortunately, some of us are going to get fired. Unfortunately, it looks like there's some jurisdictions where you might not get a fair trial.
Yeah. 91 felony charges against the former president. They're kind of grasping at straws, I would think, there, but that shows you where they're going. And like, you got to be careful. I think when you hear that term, pack the court, we got to pack the court. Why do you think they want to do that? Why do you think they want Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico to be states so they can get more Democrat senators in? And they're trying, and packing the court is just that. And I think that, I mean, we need to keep our cool, but there's got to be a platform where you can tell people this is getting crazy. And here's a prediction. You know when it's going to get crazier? This summer, when they announce that it's going to be Michelle Obama running and not Joe Biden. Wait for that.
Well, one of the things we also need to do is one of the things you're doing for me now. You're looking out for your brothers. You're giving me a voice. I'm banged up a little here. You're giving me a voice. To tell you, like, my ability to get hired at a big law firm in New Jersey right now is seriously in question. I got by grace of God, Tim Parlatore, who was Eddie Gallagher's previous attorney. He just picked me up, and I got to tell you, if it wasn't for him, I could be in serious trouble here as far as financially. And he worked on a couple other big cases. You talk about free speech, Dallas Alexander, the Canadian sniper, and they tried to shut him down when he was on a Sean Ryan podcast.
Saw that.
And that's one of the other, here's a guy who serves his country, believes in freedoms and civil liberties, and they're trying to shut him down too. So I think that's what we need to do. We need to look out for each other. Yeah. Just like you're giving me a hand, giving me a voice. There's so many other guys out there, and we're not alone that are facing the same type of dilemma. And I think that's the truth. Don't stop speaking up.
Yeah.
Hold the moral high ground and look out for each other.
Where should listeners of this podcast go just to, on your behalf, raise awareness or a follow on social media? Where should everybody go?
If you guys want to check me out, you can check me out on my IG page, Freedom Spirit 77. And you can also check me out on my LinkedIn page, William Brown, just William Brown Navy SEAL to pop up.
All
and
right.
the other thing too is, one of the things that Martin Luther King did right is, like, he had this big bus strike when they weren't looking out for the bus companies weren't doing right by Black Americans. They had the bus strike to kind of coerce them to do right. Well, I think one of the things we got to do too is we got to start doing right by each other, like Armed Forces Brewery. That's a great beer that's helped me out at a couple veteran events. And so we got to look out for each other. The other thing is, why go to a liberal law firm that their interests are inherently adverse to yours? Like, go to a Parlatore law group. If you're a veteran and you're looking for someone to legally represent you, that's who you go to firms like that. Or we got to start investing with our money where our decisions are.
Indeed. Freedom Spirit 77. and then William Brown on LinkedIn for sure. Yeah, we're gonna combine here. We're gonna get the brewery up here for the swim. You and I are gonna be in touch definitely very, very soon, and we're gonna figure out how to get more of the guy. I know a lot of guys who feel the same way about us. I know most men and women who went to combat feel the same way we do, and it's just a shame. It's a shame. It's about 1% of the country, if that. But Bill, I want to go ahead. Do you have anything else?
Hey, number one, I want to thank you for everything you've done for our nation. I want to thank you for looking out for me, giving me a voice. Thank you, brother.
Well, we're going to do this again, and I want to stay in touch with this, and yeah, we'll talk offline after this, but more to follow. And Bill, I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks a lot. Very interesting talk, and we will stay in touch if that's cool.
It's an honor, Rob. A true honor.
Yeah, that's a lot to cover. A lot going on there. We're seeing this diversity, equity, and inclusion pop up everywhere, this woke stuff. They're going to keep changing the names of everything to try to keep you fooled, but we're seeing it come up everywhere. The direct result of leftist policies. If the open borders are affecting the voters in Iowa, I talked to my family in Montana. Everything from the schools getting bogged down to crime. It's not as safe as it used to be, and it's going to get worse. We're seeing the stuff that Bill just talked about with law firms. If they're weaponizing our judicial system, which they are, which you see them doing, the DOJ and the FBI also, which we know, and more attorneys are getting offended by stuff that people are saying, combat vets, but they can't relate to combat vets because they're not veterans. And these attorneys just going against former commanders in chief, going against veterans, shutting people down. It's a difficult one, but we're gonna stay on top of this too. I want to see where this goes. But like Bill and I were just saying, it's important that we try to find a way to have a voice for ourselves, whatever that means, so that we can have a voice. And I mean, look at how good Bill is at keeping his calm after getting screwed by a law firm like that. It's important to stay calm too. The person that starts screaming and yelling is usually wrong. So if we can stay calm, and that means me, I'm gonna re-listen to this podcast again just so I can take my own advice. But yeah, very, very important. So on that, make sure, hey, if you haven't yet, and I'm just giving you pearls here, if you haven't checked out Watchtower Firearms yet, you better do it, because they're made in the USA. They're the best guns I've ever fired, and they are they're going fast. Go check out the new pistols. Check out the Nisro 15. Tell me what you think of that too. Great gun. We're always talking about making improvements. We base it on that, but a great American company, and it's in Texas, so like that. Maybe when Texas becomes the country of Texas, we'll just all meet up there. But if we can keep our calm, keep a voice, and just do our best to take that deep breath. Look out for each other, and you're never out of the fight.